I blame TripAdvisor.com. Why anyone should bother to read some of the tripe it contains remains forever a mystery for me. But they do, and I did, coming across postings such as, "I took the opportunity to visit the old city walls. They are not significant, as most have been demolished to make way for roads and other developments. It's a nice stroll. The towers make a nice photo op. Once you get to the top of the wall, you can see part of the train station." I'm meeting a friend in a coffee bar near Chongwon Station, and the Ming City Wall Park is only some 200 meters away. So, despite TripAdvisor, after 3 years of prevarication, it seems like a good time to check it out. The Ming City Wall Relics Park has the longest and best preserved section of the city's Ming Dynasty city wall, which was first built some 600 years ago in 1419, the 17th year of Emperor Yongl's reign. It ran for about 40 kilometers, but all that is left now is a section some 1.5 kilometers long, which used to be part of the inner city wall of Beijing. It's the longest section of the city walls remaining. The Ming city walls stood until the early 1960s, when most of the gates and walls were torn down to build the Beijing subway, which runs underneath where the walls once stood. The subway's inner loop line turned into the inner city at Chongwon to stop at the Beijing railway station, and did not need to run beneath a section of wall at the southeast corner of the inner city, which is why of the 40 kilometers of the original wall, only this 1.5 kilometer section was spared. In retrospect, it seems almost criminal when you consider what was done to Beijing's heritage. But the destruction started well before the 1950s. In fact, when the Beijing Circum-City Railway was built in 1915, the sight towers at the northeast and southeast corners were dismantled, and the side walls of the guard towers at these corners had arches built as passageways for the trains. The Barbican sluice gates at Dongshunmen, Andingmen, Chaoyangmen, and Dongshumen were dismantled for the passage of trains. The Barbican at Zhengyangmen was dismantled to ease traffic in the Chunmen area. Numerous arches for trains were cut in the city walls, and the walls of the imperial city were fully dismantled, except for the south to southwest section. By the end of the Great Leap Forward, from 1958 to 1961, the outer city wall had been completely dismantled, and the inner wall was halved in length. After the Sino-Soviet split in the 1960s, people felt that war with the Soviet Union was inevitable. Underground bomb shelters, underground supply cities, and an underground railway, the Beijing subway, were commissioned. Work on the metro began on the 1st of July 1965, and a cut-and-cover construction was utilized, it being the quickest way of constructing the metro at that time. Since demolishing houses and relocating people would have been such a great undertaking, the decision was made to build the metro line where the city walls and moats were located. If you look at the map of Line 2 of Beijing's subway system, you can clearly see the path of the destruction from the station's names. The first section of walls to be removed was the southern portion of the inner city wall, Xuanwumen and Chongwon, leaving behind a 23.6 kilometer long ditch. The second stage began at Beijing Railway Station in the southeast corner of the inner city and passed through the sites of Jiangguomen, Andingmen, Shijinmen, and Fuxingmen. Towers and walls were removed, and another 16-kilometer ditch was created. A section of wall near Shibianmen, about 100 meters long, was used as a storage area for raw materials, and thus was spared from demolition. Another section from Chongwon to the guard tower at the southeast corner of the inner city was spared because the metro line veers there towards the Beijing railway station. Beginning in 1972, in order to pave the second ring road above the metro and to serve high-rise apartments and hotels in the Chunmen area, Beijing's eastern, southern, and western moats were converted to sewers and covered over. What is left of the walls is indeed a sorry sight. And what is left of them have had to be heavily restored, albeit where possible using original bricks. Some sections looked much more authentic than others, though. The inner city wall was 11.4 meters high and was topped with battlements that rose another 1.9 meters. The wall was lined with brick and filled with earth, and was 19.8 meters thick at the foundation, tapering to 16 meters at the top. 13 buttresses, known as dun tai, protruded on the outside face of the wall at this location. They were constructed every 80 meters along the wall and allowed archers to fire at attackers from 3 sides, making it more difficult for the enemy to creep up unawares. Most are basically square, with the sides of the larger ones over 30 meters long. Although very narrow, the park is delightfully laid out with a winding path bordered with flowering trees, including apricot, peach, and ginkgo. According to the official blurb, the design of the park aims at classical simplicity, with over 70,000 square meters of lawns, 110,000 flowers, over 400 large trees, such as Chinese pines and scholar trees, and over 6,000 shrubs. Even in late summer, these trees are sporting beautiful pink flowers, which set off the wall nicely. Of course, the park benches are filled, as always, with people sleeping off yet another exciting day in their lives. I've never known anywhere like China, where sleeping has become a national pastime. And lest anyone should even consider using the wall to practice their rock climbing skills, there are frequent notices warning them off even thinking about it, with some notices somewhat more blunt in their admonitions. As one approaches the end of the park, walking from west to east, which I found out is by far the better way to explore this attraction, there's a buttress which looks to have been totally restored, so new it could almost have been constructed in the past decade. And just around the corner, in what is now a car park, is an archway leading into the guard tower at the southeast corner of the fortifications. Now, these guard towers were located at the 4 corners of the inner city walls. They were all similarly designed in the multi-eaved Shishunding style, with grey tiles and green glazed edges. The towers were 4 stories high and were fitted with 14 arrow slits on each floor. The sides facing the city also had true windows that could be opened for ventilation and light, while the arrow slits were only opened when shooting arrows or cannonballs. Only the southeastern corner guard tower has survived. The northeastern tower was dismantled in 1920 and its platform in 1953. The northwestern tower was destroyed by Russian cannon fire in 1900 during the Boxer Rebellion. Its platform was dismantled in 1969. The southwestern corner guard tower was dismantled in 1930 because of a lack of funds for maintenance, and its platform was dismantled in 1969. So this remaining guard tower has now been made into a museum complex, which to my surprise turns out to be well worth the 10 RMB entrance fee. The southeast corner tower was built from 1436 to 1439 and is a major state-protected historical site. Rising 29 meters in height, it is the largest corner tower still standing in China. In its day, it could house 200 soldiers and has ramps for soldiers and horses. During the Boxer Rebellion of 1900, the tower was attacked and captured by the Eight-Nation Alliance. I hand my money over to the smiling lady in the ticket office and study one of the maps, which helpfully shows where one is in the overall scheme of things. I head for the Horseway, a slope from mounting the city wall on a horse. It originally consisted of large bricks vertically laid one slightly higher than the other. But in 1988, the vertically laid bricks were changed into slab stone staircases in order to let visitors mount the city wall more easily. From the top, just as the TripAdvisor correspondent pointed out, you can get a bird's-eye view of the station and various trains chugging in and out. I try to contain my excitement and move on to the main building on the ramparts, which, unlike the lesser buildings around it, isn't even marked on the map. I discover that inside is a privately managed, non-profit contemporary art gallery opened in 1991 called the Red Gate Gallery. It's currently showing off an exhibition of crystal resin sculptures. They're quite nice in a weird sort of way, and some of the reds and blues are extraordinarily rich in their intensity. Making one's way up to the next floor, one comes across an exhibition of Beijing city walls, similar to the one you can see inside Chunmun's exhibition rooms. There are loads of historical photographs of many of Beijing's old gates, together with pictures of social scenes, such as a beheading at an execution site sometime in the Qing dynasty. Xuanrumen was to the west of Zhengyangmen and was the only way of getting to the execution ground at Saishiko. Accordingly, it was also known as Xingmen, Execution Gate. You can even see one of the swords used to decapitate the unfortunate victims. All the gates had a double entrance, which included a watchtower for defense just before the main entrance. Each was unique. For instance, the watchtower at Zhengyangmen was 38 meters high, 52 meters wide, and 32 meters deep, constructed on a raised platform 12 meters high. This gate, named Chunmen, was for the exclusive use of the emperor. It had grey tubed roof tiles with green glazed tiles at the top. The southern side had 7 rooms with 52 arrow slits, and the northern side had 5 rooms with 21 arrow slits. The eastern and western sides each had 21 arrow slits. The other inner-city watchtowers had exterior designs similar to that of Chunmen, with multi-eaved gate towers in the front and a series of 5 rooms in the back. Both the upper and lower levels of the watchtowers were equipped with arrow slits. The watchtowers were connected to both the inner walls and outer walls by a structure called a barbican. Each inner-city barbican had a unique design. The barbicans of Dongzhimen and Shijimen were square. The ones at Zhengyangmen and Dushengmen were rectangular, and at Dongbianmen and Xibianmen they were semicircular. Most of the inner-city barbicans had rounded corners, which provided better sightlines and were more difficult to climb or destroy. Each inner-city barbican contained a temple, and the barbican at Zhengyangmen had 2, Guandimiao in the west and Guanyinmiao in the east, but they were both dismantled during the Cultural Revolution. Meanwhile, when Shijimen, the last gate to remain fully intact, was being dismantled in 1969, they discovered another gate, Heyimen, which had been built during the reign of Yuan Shundi in 1360. You can see what Shijimen looked like in the 1920s, a splendid edifice if ever there was one. They even have a lock from the original Chaoyungmen, which is located at the midpoint of the inner-city eastern wall. Chaoyungmen was Beijing's food gate, through which many carts carrying staple foods entered the city. The gate was closest to the Beijing-Hangzhou Grand Canal, and wheat and rice from the South China Plains arrived via that route. Much of the food was stored in warehouses just inside Chaoyungmen. I'm particularly taken with a picture of a camel caravan passing by Guang'anmen, the Gate of Extended Peace, which was located slightly north of the midsection of the western wall. After a good half hour, I make my way outside again. During the Qing dynasty, the 8 banners, which were the military administrative organizations of the Manchu, were responsible for garrisoning the city. The pure blue banner was in charge of this section of the city wall, and the stone slab preserved here was used to affix the pure blue banner's flagpole. There's also remains of a cannon, liberally decorated with Chinese characters, but nothing to tell you anything about it. From the top of these ramparts, you can see what remains of the top of the walls. There were also 3 pushi, houses in which the defending soldiers of the Ming and Qing dynasty stayed when they were on guard duty. These 3 were authentically rebuilt in 1988, according to historical records. From the Dun Tai, one can get a very good idea of the width of the defending wall and how the park has been constructed, hugging right up to it. And down below there's a beautifully carved rock which sports what looks like a flower arrangement. But to be honest, I have no idea, as there's nothing to say what it is or what its significance is. My visit over, I head on up to Jiangguomen, home to the Beijing Ancient Observatory, built atop another section of the eastern city wall, to take subway line 2 on my journey home. I guess I will forever see line 2 in a different light from now on. What would you do without it? But how much more amazing would Beijing be nowadays if such wanton destruction hadn't been visited on the city by its own government?